Hello everybody, my name is Graham, listening and watching to the Political Vigilante. Aw snap, don't forget you can listen to the show, so check it out on iTunes if you want to consume the show in a day. I take like a week's worth of videos and I put all the audio together. You get early access to it on Patreon. Another way to support the show and pay attention to what is going on in the world. Here's a story that I don't know the corporate media is going to cover this. So Ilhan Omar, who for the most part I'm a pretty big fan of, and her and Ocasio-Cortez and I forget the third woman that all endorsed Bernie, and which is cool, which is great. And I've talked about how important that is in terms of crushing the sort of neoliberal identity politics, and actually they're not backing Liz Warren or Kamala because they're women or a woman of color or whatever. They're doing what is the best. Bernie's progressive policy is the best. If Bernie was a corporate Democrat, I wouldn't support him. If Kamala Harris was a true progressive and her whole record reflected that, I would back her, but she's not. Bernie's been, and he's not perfect. His foreign policy's not great, and you could even say he has voted for some wars. He does call Putin a dictator. But we got to hold progressives accountable. We don't cut them slack. And nobody gets a free ride on this show. Nobody gets a free pass, man. Everyone's held I've been critical of Bernie. I've been critical of Tulsi on this show. And Omar, for the most part, I very much like her. But there was a recent, a part of this bill for sanctions against Turkey included in it was recognizing the Armenian Genocide. Because prior to this resolution, there's two countries outside of Turkey won't recognize the genocide. What happened in 1915 in World War I, the Ottoman Empire slaughtered 1.5 million Armenians. It was a genocide. The Turkish government to this day won't acknowledge it. The United States, prior to this House measure, won't acknowledge it. One other country that won't acknowledge the Armenian Genocide? Israel. How offensive is that? So what happened, though, it passed. Omar voted present on the Armenian Genocide. You can vote yay, you can vote nay, you cannot show up or vote present. Voting present is not voting for it, and it's not voting against it. It's just saying I'm here, but it's basically abstaining is what it is. And she's come under a lot of, the Armenian press and people, in the Armenian community, and people who are just such as myself who are in favor of recognizing the Armenian Genocide. But let's find out why. Let's find out why. We're going to unpack why. Maybe she had noble reasons. The House resolution recognizes that the Ottoman Empire committed a genocide against the Armenian people, killing 1.5 million during World War I. The resolution names the Ottoman Empire, but not Turkey, as the party responsible. The resolution drew widespread bipartisan support in the House, passing with a vote of 405 to 11. And was brought to a vote alongside democratic efforts to sanction Turkey for its incursion in northeastern Syria. So they packaged it as part of these sanctions. Now, I'm not a fan of sanctions. I've talked about it before on this show. They are a form of warfare. And I'm not a fan of putting this genocide in this sanction thing. I think it should have been its own bill on its own, recognize the Armenian Genocide. But this is still a victory. They package it in there, which is like, this is politics. But if this is how you get this passed, then I guess I'm all for it. 405 to 11 with 3 people saying present. Here it is. Present. Minnesota's 5th District Democrat Omar Ilhan. 405 people to 11. She voted present. And she took a lot of heat for it. She took a lot of heat for it. She even used words like, well, we need to come up with the math or the numbers, which is she uses these sort of Turkey genocide denying talking points, which was really, so she got called out hard. This Turkish player for the Celtics in the NBA He's Turkish, but he's very critical of Erdogan, the president of Turkey. He's very critical of him. He called her out in an article that's in the New York Post, and this is how she responded on Twitter. Let's see what she says. This is classic realpolitik. My issue was not with the substance of the resolution. Of course, I don't know why she puts two asterisks in there. We should acknowledge the genocide. Okay. My issue was with the timing and context. I think we should demand accountability for human rights abuses consistently, not simply when it suits our political goals. Now that's, again, what I agree with. If she's saying this, I didn't want to vote for it because it's being used as politics and sanctioning, and I don't believe in sanctioning, right? So that on its surface, to me, okay, I agree. This is okay. She's of course we should acknowledge. So she's acknowledging it here in a tweet on the 29th. My focus has and always will be to make sure our foreign policy is consistent, coherent, and my votes will as well. So she just meant that on her own. I would be like, okay, I could see like she's acknowledging it, but she doesn't want to use sanctions against. So she's against sanctions against Turkey. She's critical of the Trump administration. Look, she wasn't allowed to go to Israel. She's been very, very outspoken. And Bernie Sanders even said in the Fox News town hall that had just happened, he goes, you know, being critical of a right-wing Israeli government doesn't make you anti-Semitic. He goes, maybe she could reach out, because she's Muslim American, reach out to the Jewish community and have more of a conversation and have more of a dialogue with them. He goes, but it wasn't right that she wasn't denied access to it. So if it was just part of that, I would kind of be like, okay, I get it. And maybe she's standing firm for her beliefs. But you know what happens on this show? Nobody gets a free pass, kids. A Erdogan ally donated $1,500 to Ilhan Omar last month. Advocates for the Armenian Genocide resolution said that Omar's statement mirrors propaganda pushed by the Turkish government. Wait a minute now, Omar. Wait a minute. If you were just standing on principle, I'm against sanctions, and I don't want to use the Armenian Genocide as a political football, we should acknowledge it. Like what I just said at the top, I believe it should have just, the Armenian Genocide should have been its own resolution. Okay. Essentially, this is a Turkish talking point that she's throwing out. Armen Haparian, the executive director of the Armenian National Committee of America, which has advocated heavily for a vote on the Armenian Genocide, told the Daily Caller News Foundation. Helay Mutlu contributed to Omar's campaign last month, records show. His group, the Turkish-American Steering Committee, has waged a public relations campaign against the genocide resolution. So I went to the FEC, the Federal Elections Commission, that tracks donations. I've done this before. Like I've gone to opensecrets.org. I always say follow the money, don't I? I always say follow the money and nobody gets a free pass. So here it is. This is the itemized receipts. There's Omar for Congress, right? There's this person donated $225, another person, same person, $225. Here's Halil Mutlu, who I just said, $1,500. So this is, they asked for the request. We'll go in even tighter here. There is his name right there. And there's the $1,500. This is a tweet from 2017. It was an honor to host the Turkish Consul General for lunch yesterday and have him join me for a tour. July 1st, 2017. Now again, on its own, she's met with the Erdogan, she's met with the Turkish consulate. On its own, there's no problem. I have no problem with that. I don't want, let's like, oh, Tulsi met with Assad, she's an Assad apologist. I don't have a problem that Tulsi met with Assad. I'm glad she said, why are we doing these ridiculous regime change wars? Nancy Pelosi met with Assad. John Kerry met with Assad. That was his job as Secretary of State. If you're on the Foreign Relations Committee or Secretary of State, you're going to meet with world leaders, and some of them are not liked by many people in the world, right? But Assad didn't donate, to my knowledge, Assad has not donated to Tulsi's campaign. That's different. Tulsi said, I'm against war. They donated, this is 2017. And this was the response on was it an honor to meet with representatives of an oppressive regime who denies genocide against Christians and still carry out atrocities against Kurds? Shame on you if you don't bring this up and also asked about their latest ethnic cleansing campaigns against Kurds and Afrin. Boo, this one woman writes. Great. Was it War Criminals Meeting Day? Kurds, Afrin, Twitter Kurds. Omar, you got to explain this because this doesn't look good. It doesn't look like you're just against sanctions and you've met with world leaders and hey, you're Muslim, which is fine, and the Turkey is a Muslim country, so you can't just tell me, oh, a Muslim country is happy that a Muslim woman is now in United States Congress, so they're supporting her. It sounds like there's more to it than that. And genocide is genocide. And Obama went around when he was campaigning in 2007 and 2008 to the Armenian churches. Most Armenians are Christian. And said that he was going to do a resolution recognizing the Armenian genocide, and he became president, and he bailed on him. Another thing Obama bailed on, in addition to the not helping out people facing foreclosure, and they took us from 2 wars to 7, he also did that to the Armenian community. So they're a little sensitive to this, and rightfully so. April 24th is I believe April 24th is Armenian Genocide Recognition Day, I believe it's called, and forgive me if I got that wrong. I'm almost positive it's April 24th, but the fact that America and Israel have not been acknowledging this genocide is wrong. And Omar, if you're watching this, you've got to explain this, because I'm sorry. Just that she met with Turkish officials, but the $1,500 is the $1,500. The $1,500, and then you vote present. You say, of course we should acknowledge the Armenian genocide, but you had an opportunity to, and you didn't. You didn't. And the fact that you got $1,500 from people that have ties to the Turkish government that have actively tried to deny the Armenian genocide, that doesn't look good for you. I'm sorry. It doesn't look good. I'm sorry. And nobody gets a free pass on this show. So you got to explain this. Does this mean we all bail on Omar and she sold us out? No, I don't like that either. I don't like that just freak, they did this one thing I don't like, but we got to hold them accountable. And I'm going to hold progressives accountable. So I don't agree with this at all. At the end of the day, if a genocide is a genocide, it's a genocide, and you have to acknowledge it. And the United States needs to acknowledge the Armenian genocide. You don't get to pick and choose. And it's offensive to me that Israel won't acknowledge the Armenian genocide. They won't acknowledge it. So what do we acknowledge the Holocaust, but we don't acknowledge Rwanda? Do we not? Let's acknowledge all of them. Let's acknowledge Native American genocide that was committed on American soil. The indigenous people of this land, we wiped them out. Right? There was a genocide of Africans and the slaves. That was a genocide. So we got to acknowledge, you don't get to pick and choose which genocides you get to acknowledge. We acknowledge all of them because they were all awful, and we should acknowledge them so we learn from them. And the Turkish government needs to just let this go and say, yeah, what would that do? What kind of a world would we have if the Turkish government went, you know what? It was awful. It was over 100 years ago. It was a genocide. It wasn't the right thing to do. And let's bridge this gap between the Turks and the Armenians. Let's let this go. It's just people just can't admit fault. Just admit it. It was awful. Can you imagine if America was like, there was no genocide against Native Americans? I don't know. They all decided to move. They all wanted to do the Trail of Tears. They wanted to live on reservations. Look, they got casinos now. No, it never happened. I mean, there's some bad things that happened, but it wasn't a genocide. Can you imagine that? If Germany, by the way, acknowledges the Armenian genocide, but Israel doesn't. Does that sound insane to you? That's the world we're living in. And a lot of this has to do with the geopolitics of oil and military bases. So Trump pulling out of Syria, overall, I'm glad he's pulling troops out of Syria. Could he have done it in a better way? Absolutely. Leaving a power vacuum. But I want American troops out of there. And of course, then he sends them to Saudi Arabia because that's what this is all about. Anyway, is oil. And we've been allies with the Turks because we need military bases on Turkish soil strategically to keep our bullshit petrodollar war machine going. So we funneled ISIS troops through our American bases on Turkish soil to fight Assad. See how complicated and dumb this is? So Omar, you're actually participating in this ridiculous ally here, enemy here, switching allegiances just to wherever the way the wind blows, wherever I get money from, and you did it for $1,500. Sorry. Acknowledge the Armenian Genocide and stop with these. You can do all of it. I don't like sanctions, but if I have to choose between sanctions and acknowledging the Armenian Genocide, excuse me, I'm going to acknowledge the genocide. Omar, if you or anybody from your staff wants to come on this show, please email me. I'd love to ask you more of these questions point blank, because this seems a little sketchy to me. Are they going to talk about this on MSNBC or CNN? I don't think so, man. And this was submitted to me by a fan of the show who's digging deep. You are all political vigilantes. I tell you this, all of you are political vigilantes. You're out there doing the work. You're out there, you're my research team. You're my eyes and ears. There are political vigilantes literally all over the face of the earth. Support the show, patreon.com/Graham Elwood, rockfin.com/Graham Elwood. I don't get supported by the Turkish government. They don't give me, governments don't give the vigilante any money, kids. I don't get money from the war machine. Merck Pharmaceuticals doesn't donate. Boeing, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, they don't donate to this show. Shell Oil doesn't donate to this show. You make this show happen. Thank you so much. Like, share, subscribe. Please hit the subscribe button. YouTube has been throttling and put these videos all out there. And all of us together, we're making Gotham great again. Boom. Shave your knuckles for justice.